That work. Good Vach, good Chodesh. Let's begin with Pesach Bracha, Pesach Pedach Sanya. Let's give a bracha to Yosef and Alona and whole family. Should be a schus for them for all good, begashmius, beruchnius, with brachas in Bana, Chaim, Zeiner, Revichi, Kul Revichi. Children with parnasa, with nachas, love and happiness from each other, together, nachas from each of their children, with prosperity and bracha. L'chaim.
Amen. L'chaim.
Tonight is a very special night. It's Rosh Chodesh Taaamuz, and it's also my grandfather's yahrzeit, Rabbi Fogelman. My grandfather studied in yeshiva in Torah Vadas, New York. And in yeshiva, the men are on this side, the women are on that side. On this side. In yeshiva in Torah Vadas was not a Hasidic yeshiva, but they had a Tanya class in this yeshiva, and because of the Tanya class, my grandfather became very interested in learning more about Hasidus and the Rebbe. This was many years ago. This was in the time when there was a draft for World War II, and my grandfather was called to the draft office. Actually, I just read the story today. I never knew the story before. He was called to the draft office, and the American draft office knew about the yeshiva students, and they wanted to make sure that the students were justified in their studies to actually be exempt from the draft. So they asked my grandfather, "Are you studying Torah?" It was a religious man or someone who knew a lot about religion that was overseeing the draft, and he said, "Are you studying Torah lishma, which is the Talmudic expression for its own sake, or do you want to be a rabbi?" Now, the Hasidic way of responding to that is, you're not studying for any other purpose, it's altruistic. So he says, hopefully it's lishma, hopefully it's for the right reasons. Okay, that means you're not studying for a profession, and therefore you're not exempt from the draft. Right. So my grandfather went back to the previous Rebbe, and the previous Rebbe wanted to know exactly what the draft office asked, the draft, what he answered. And the previous Rebbe responded this. The previous Rebbe said, it says in the Talmud that if Yoav would not do battle, then King David would not be able to study Torah. If King David would not study Torah, Yoav cannot do battle. Yoav was King David's general, and only in the merit of King David's Torah study was Yoav successful in battle. And only in merit of Yoav's put his neck out and protecting King David was King David able to study Torah. So the previous Rebbe said, therefore, the law is, he established the law for the American system. He said that those are Yeshua al-Kalim, those who are yeshiva students, they are exempt from the draft because they are, in their merit of Torah study, they're giving a blessing to the United States Army and Navy and Air Force in the merit of their Torah study. That's what the previous Rebbe said, and this was accepted somehow, that my grandfather wasn't forced to serve. Alona mentioned tonight that the reason she felt compelled to make this event in honor of the Rebbe was because her interest in Yiddishkeit and her connection to Yiddishkeit was sparked through the Rebbe and the Rebbe's Chassidus. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov once gave the following parable. He said there was a king. I'm sorry for my voice. This is Farbrengen for me started already early this morning, so it's a long Farbrengen. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov said that there was a king, a German king, who had a treasury of wine in Hungary. In that time, Rabbi Nachman said the best wine in the world was in Hungary. And so he wanted to have some bottles from his treasury to be brought back to Germany. So he sent one of his top ministers, to go administer this transfer of these very expensive bottles. But the minister couldn't go by himself. He needed a schlepper, he needed someone to carry the bottles. So he hired a farmer. The farmer comes and he schleps the bottles for this important minister. But this farmer is very excited to have some of this wine. He's so excited. He just asks more than once, "Would you mind if I tasted a little bit of the wine?" And the minister says, they had a pit stop. He says, "Okay, have a little bit." Takes a cup of wine. He tastes it. He loves it. And never forgot the experience. Years later, he's with his friends, and one of his friends pulls out a bottle of wine. And he says, "This is Hungarian wine." Hungarian wine. Wow, he remembered the taste of Hungarian wine. He takes a cup of the wine. This is not Hungarian wine. I've tasted Hungarian wine. This is not Hungarian wine. So Rav Nachman said that if someone tasted the teachings of Torah and experienced the joy of a mitzvah, the physical pleasures of the world, you could tell it's not the same. It's not as meaningful. Doesn't resonate. Doesn't touch you. Lacks. It becomes bland. Once you taste the connection of Hashem through a mitzvah, other pleasures of the world become bland. I think similarly, within Torah itself, there's the wine of the Torah. There's the inner dimension of the Torah. Once you taste the Tanya and the teachings of the Rebbe, it really gives you a deeper connection to Hashem. It opens up your neshama. As the Zohar says, there are three things bound with each other: the Torah, the Jew, and Hashem. When a Jew studies the inner part of the Torah, it reveals the deepest part of the neshama and connects the neshama with the essence of Hashem. So that's what I think hooked my grandfather into these teachings. And it didn't just spark his interest as a yeshiva student, but he went on, by the previous Rebbe's instruction, to move to Worcester, Massachusetts, where he began a Chabad center. Or more accurately, he began his residence in the social hall in the Beth Judah. Beth Judah was the name of the Ashkenazi shul they had in Worcester at the time. And he and his wife had nowhere to stay in Worcester, Massachusetts. They came to start Chabad and whatever the previous wanted to accomplish, a mikveh, a school, a yeshiva, whatever they had in mind. But they had no place to stay. They had no money. And they lived in the social hall of the Beth Judah. The Beth Judah was very accommodating for maybe, a day, a week, a month. But it's a little bit strange to have a couple living in the social. I could just, identify with it. Sometimes you have some homeless people that end up falling asleep in the shul and they live in the social hall. Doesn't fit. And so my grandparents were by the Rebbe and they were telling the Rebbe about the difficulties they had. And the Rebbe said, soon there's going to be victory. Oh, what happened? They had a board meeting at the Beth Judah. The Beth Judah board meeting, everyone unanimously was of the opinion that he should leave this synagogue immediately, should get out of the social hall. But there was one old guy, and the old guy, what's the big deal? What does it bother us? We're not there all week. Let them stay there. And there's a young guy by the meeting. He got so incensed at the old guy, he gets up, he slaps the old man in the face. And that changed the whole color of the meeting. And it's, okay, how can you do that? And because of that, they let them stay. But it wasn't over. And it was very difficult. The Rebbe himself, this is true. My grandmother told me this many times. Unbelievable. The Rebbe himself once called my grandmother and told her to change the locks on the synagogue. They were about to evict them by just changing the locks. And the Rebbe, with divine inspiration, knew about this. And I guess the locks had to be changed anyways. And therefore they changed them already. And so they let them stay. It's unbelievable. But that's what happened. But here's where I wanted to go. At one point, my grandfather's and his wife, Gesund, my grandmother, they're by the Rebbe, and it's really hard. Put yourself in their shoes, like nobody likes you. You're living in a social hall. You have no money. You have this dream. You know that it's true. You know that the Rebbe's blessings and words are real. But on the other hand, like on the ground, it's not there. So they're in the Rebbe's room. And the Rebbe told my grandfather a story, which I think about very often. And I want to share with you, and I think this story will help you. Well, let's say first l'chaim. L'chaim, l'chaim, v'baracha. last Shabbos, I was by the Walgreens on Pico and Robertson, and I'm waiting for the light to change. And there's another gentleman next to me, and waiting for light to change, the same predicament as I. So I said to him, "Tell me your Torah thought for waiting for the light to change. What's your Torah thought for waiting for light? What's your waiting for light to change Torah thought?" It's like, I don't know. I shared with him one. We crossed the street. Which synagogue are you going to? Which synagogue are you going to? Then I said, I'm going to our synagogue, Chabad Pico, Beis Betzalel. So he says, I know that synagogue. I once spoke to the rabbi. I said, oh. So my children taught me Gen Z. I said, he is him, you know? He says, really, his face literally changed colors. Literally changed colors. And he literally said these words, not exaggerating. He said, you have no idea how much you changed my life. Basically, a year ago, he was married to someone not Jewish. He didn't know what to do next. And he called me. Make a long story short, I was able, through the short phone call, to put him in direction. And now he's about to get married to a Jewish girl. So I said to him, listen, it says in the Torah, if you start a mitzvah, you have to finish the mitzvah. I want to have the merit of teaching you the laws of family purity, of mikveh, of marriage. He said, I will love that. He hugged me. He started to cry. It was a moment. It was a moment. It's a moment you don't always get to see, you know. But there's something that made me realize. We talk about the Rebbe's mission. It's something which is relevant to each of us. Doesn't go by quantity. Doesn't go if you have a black hat and you have a beard and you have a black coat. Doesn't go by space and time. It's a soul thing. It's if you want to connect and you want to do the mission of Hashem, the mission that Hashem entrusted to you, especially as the Rebbe illuminated what the mission is of every Jew in our generation. It's real and it's infinite. I think this is a good intro to tell you what the Rebbe told my grandfather. The Rebbe told my grandfather the following. Say another l'chaim. So the night is young. You have to catch up to me. I'm starting this since this morning. The Rebbe told my grandfather the following. Rabbi Yonason Eibeshitz was a top advisor to an emperor. I forgot which emperor it was. And the Rebbe said that all the other advisors of this emperor were very jealous. And they all wanted the king to exclude the Jew from the proceedings of the government. They felt the Jew should be the last one to be the top advisor. If anything, the Jew could maybe be included a little bit, but not be the top advisor. They told the king, you have to do things democratically. You have to do things a fair way. Why is the Jew your top advisor? So the king responded with a very great system, which if the American government would deploy the system, there would be peace and harmony, and the government would be in a far better place. The king said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have a chicken race. Everyone's going to choose a chicken. Whoever's chicken runs the fastest will be my top advisor. So all the other ministers chose a chicken to represent them in the race. Everyone chose these big grub chickens, these big fat strong chickens. But Rabbi Yonason, he chose a darinke. He chose a thin, scrawny little chicken. And the race begins. And all the chickens started fighting with each other. And Rabbi Yonason's chicken went to the finish line. So the Rebbe's message was clear. Don't think about politics. Don't think about infighting. Focus on the goal. We're waiting for the light to change. We're waiting for the light to change to green, from the red of the exile to the green of the redemption of Geula. We have to focus on the goal. To focus on the goal, each of us are emissaries of the Rebbe in our own way, in our own atmosphere, in our own mission. We all have a different, unique, special mission from Hashem, as illuminated through Chassidus. We all tasted the wine of Hungary. We know what it's about. L'chaim, we should have a little more strength. 30 years, Gimel Taaamuz is koach, more power, more direction. L'chaim, v'rach. Yeah. Keino avino malkeino meshiyeino oh yeshiyeino ve'aleino ay shenis v'kare ve'yashliyeino ve'rachmaveino Hengo al tieschem Oh, darling, oh, oh no, no, Blake, no one there. Hey, 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 yeah, it's okay. Hey, 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 my, yeah, yeah.
Who's on the mic? I can't hear you. If you're talking, I can't hear you. Can't hear anything.
Hey, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, yeah, 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 la, la, mama, yeah, mama, mama, hey, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta. That's so good. Let's give it up for Moshe Biton.
Yay, Moshe Badon.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Schuss, Mora Dasra. L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim Rosh.
So,
Please undivided attention, my Mendel begun.
just want to thank Yosef for this beautiful event. Again, all the brachas. Continue the brachas.
Amen.
I want to any brachas. Yeah, no, they're there.
Amen.
So, I want to share, I guess, a personal story. And I was at Farbrengen today, and they're asked everyone to share something personal where, you felt the Rebbe hoping inspired by the Rebbe in some way, but something personal, something more than just somewhere teaching. It could be an encounter or whatever it is. So although sometimes it can feel something personal, but the Rebbe, I was visiting someone at the hospital today, and they're speaking about the concept of how the Rebbe always wanted the tachlis over logic. And everyone understand what tachlis is? I thought you said it very nicely, very well. Now, the Ragim tzedakah, for example, the idea of giving tzedakah, in Rambam it says there's different levels of giving tzedakah, and tzedakah that's given in a modest way without your name being publicized is one of the higher levels of tzedakah. But the Rebbe, when he spoke about tzedakah, the Rebbe totally put that aside, and the Rebbe said, you should mention your name, let your name be on the walls, let your name be publicized. You know why? Because we got to look at Taaamuz. They're saying someone else would see and say, wow, he gave, maybe I should do it as well. Inspire someone else to give. Forget about your own, humility, regard your own level of tzedakah. Right? So I think the same thing comes to this is that we have to look at what would the Rebbe want when it comes to there's someone else that can get inspired, someone else that can learn from it. So it was actually another story that was shared by the Farbrengen. We'll see if there's time later. Maybe we'll share it with Rabbi 11. But
When you go to the hospital often, right?
I do go to the hospital.
Almost every day.
Different hospitals. Yeah.
Almost every day. We're going to visiting Jews in the hospital.
Yeah, it's a switch that I have to do this. How I met thousand. That's how I met because I went to the hospital. That's how I met. Not in the hospital. One of the doctors in the hospital. Yeah. So okay. The story goes like this. Well, first I want to say something and then I'll say the story. So we know that the sun is always shining. Even though we don't see the sun right now, it's shining. It's just not we don't see it here, right? But the sun is shining with its full power all the time, never changes. So we know this is the same thing when it comes to right, true things. When it comes to tzaddik, when it comes to something which of holiness of Kedusha, it doesn't change. What changes is us. We suddenly were like, wait, I don't see it anymore. I don't feel it. But it doesn't change the reality. The same thing when it comes to tzaddik, and we know, like it said in Tanya, even after the passing of the tzaddik lives on and even stronger than before. And many times you hear people that I remember once there was a in yeshiva, there was one of the older boys was saying a story, and he shared a story with the Rebbe. I still remember what the story was. And he said that there was a lady that she was in a coma, and they gave up and everything, and finally, miraculously, she woke up and she's never seen the Rebbe or anything like that before. And somehow, I don't remember the details of the story. I just remember that the punchline that these two yeshiva boys, the Chabad boys, came and were visiting her, and she was telling them the story how she miraculously woke up, and she said, I was in this dream, and suddenly I see this guy with a white beard appear to me, and he tells me, I remember he was saying it in French, because this was in yeshiva in French. I remember the word he said, but he said, breathe, take a breath, you could breathe, you could get up. And suddenly she's sharing with these boys. I felt this person telling me, breathe, you can get up. And suddenly she says in this thing, I sit up and I wake up from my coma.
Wow.
And the young boys say, wait, they took out a picture from the Rebbe from the thing, and they said, was it this man? She said, yeah, that was him. She's never seen the Rebbe before. So I remember after they said the story, I was inspired. And I remember a young boy said, I don't get it. I remember I turned to the boy next to me, with this, you don't need anything else. You could just live with this story, and you don't need any other proof or any other Farbrengen. Give it another week, give another 2 weeks. You'll see. Unfortunately, I think he wasn't wrong. And that's the way it is with us humans, that, so we have moments. The sun is shining, the Rebbe is still shining, the Rebbe is always giving his blessings, and we have our moments. Sometimes we feel it, and we have to remind ourselves that just because I only felt it at that moment, that doesn't mean that it's not something continuous. So what's the story that I want to share? So it was actually Gimel Taaamuz. This is now probably almost 20 years ago. Almost 20 years ago. I was in yeshiva. I still remember it was in France, and the mashpia, the yeshiva, a person with a lot of energy, Rabbi Yehuda Lipsker. And he's sitting down. This is in the wee hours of the morning, Gimel Taaamuz. We're Farbrengen, and probably 2, 3 in the morning. Actually, maybe even 3, 4 in the morning. I remember we were Farbrengen nonstop. And this is after a lot of the time. And I remember he was saying like this, and he had a lot of energy, so he would say things very dramatic way. He's banging on the table and saying, when you look at a picture of the Rebbe is looking at you. And he said again, when you look at a picture of the Rebbe is looking at you, he's looking at you, and you're looking at him, and he was going on back, and he said it probably 20 times. And I remember he was saying with such a passion, when you look at a picture of the Rebbe's looking at you. And had it impacted me. It had an effect on me. I remember thinking like, this is something, the way he said it with so much. And we know that this is a true concept. The Rebbe told many times about the previous Rebbe. The Rebbe didn't speak about himself, I think, in this concept, but many times the Rebbe, instead of speaking directly about himself, he would say about the previous Rebbe. And he told the Chassidim that when they're in a difficult moment, they should look at a picture, take out a picture of the previous Rebbe, and look at the picture and know that the Rebbe is looking at you at that moment. So fast forward, this is Gimel Taaamuz. Fast forward about 2 months, and every Friday we would go on Mivtzoyim in Paris to do Mivtzoyim, to put tefillin on other Jews. And every there was like a pair of two boys. The from the way it is in the yeshiva would have a route. It would go down a few streets, go down a few, and then different people, different stores, offices. You put still, and you give them a Dvar Torah. So every week the boys would come back, a lot of energy. I remember Friday night we would sit by the Shabbat table, everyone would share different stories and amazing, inspiring stories. And I remember for me it was one of the hardest things of the week. Every time I would go, for some reason, maybe it's me. There's people that maybe could tell me maybe it was, but every time the people were just so cold. They just weren't interested. I said, "Do you want to do tefillin?" No, I'm not interested. Say, "Oh, are the owners there?" No, they're not here, and they're sitting in the back. I could see them in the back. They're not here, or they're busy. And every week, week in, week out, it was all the boys would come back and all excited. And for me, it was like this depressing experience every week. I went because I felt it was an important thing to do. And there were a couple of people that were interested. Let's say, other guys would come back with like 10 people putting on tefillin, people like that gave tzedakah. They heard the Dvar Torah, they were interested. I would come back, one, maybe two. The most, let's say, ever came maybe 3, 4, 5 trillion, I think. If I remember correctly, 5 trillion was the most people ever. It was my most successful week. And it was just, I guess, difficult because it was very. So I remember this week was the last week of Chodesh Elul. And when all the boys of the yeshiva go to the yeshiva finishes and we go to 770 for Rosh Hashanah. And I'm getting my bag ready. And I'm in my room by myself. And suddenly I'm, thinking about my Mitzrayim route that I'm about to go on, a difficult moment that it was for me. And suddenly, out of no preparation, suddenly I see the picture of the Rebbe on the wall. And my eyes locked with the picture of the Rebbe, all spontaneous. I just feel like the Rebbe is looking right at me. I took a moment, I asked the Rebbe, please give a blessing. I became emotional. I said, Rebbe, please give a blessing. I said, Mitzrayim should be with Hatzlacha. The people, And that was it. It was a few seconds inspiration. And I went on the train. And we're on the train, all the boys together. It was a packed train. We would come on the train with all our bags, with the spilling and everything. And I remember one of the boys gets up there and he says, guys, next week we're going to travel to 770. We're going to travel to the oil. Make sure you get letters from people on your routes that you should write, ask a blessing for Rosh Hashanah, for a new year. We'll bring it to the oil and give them the opportunity to write to the Rebbe.
What's that? Advertisement. Start advertisement. I'm going to the oil tomorrow. If anyone wants to send a letter to the Rebbe, I'd be happy to take it for you. Okay, end the advertisement. Go ahead.
And I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that will take that out for it. Well, I remember thinking that night, just you pour a salt on a wound. I remember thinking to myself, this guy's all excited and he stands up. I remember who the boy was. I remember where he stood. He stands up on the train. He's all passionate, and I'm like thinking, these guys not interested in put on tefillin. They're not interested in anything. I mean, he asked them if they wanted to get a blessing. Like these guys are not. And okay, we start going on the Messiah. Come to the first store. It's a cell phone store. And the guys sometimes. It was one of those guys, those moody guys. Tefillin. You start on the right foot, Then I go to another store where they usually say, "Oh, they're not there." This is 1 second, come back. Oh yeah, they're there. They go to the back. Go to the back. Put on fill one of them, the second one. So I'm getting a little excited. I say, would you like to take the opportunity? I'm going to the Rebbe. If you want to write a letter, says, "Oh, please." Sit down. They write a letter to the Rebbe. They're all excited. They're so they give thank you for this opportunity, the bracha and everything. And then I continue walking, and I see this it looks like a club, a kosher club. But they're playing cards or something, and I come inside and I say, "Is anyone there Jewish?" All these guys, yeah, we're Jewish. All they want to put on tefillin. We blew the shofar for them. It was a party. And suddenly I suddenly caught myself remembering what happened a few hours before. It skipped my mind. I forgot about it. I remember getting chills on my arms, saying, I don't believe this is happening. Continue walking down the street. There's two guys smoking. It says, "Hey, are you guys Jewish?" "Yeah, we have an office right here." "Oh, please come inside. Put on tefillin." At the end of the week, I remember I would count the tefillin. We would make sure because after the end of the week. So the week before, we had a euro coin that was in the pushka, a €1 coin. There was 3 or 4 tefillin the week before. The end of that week, there were 21 people that put on tefillin.
Wow.
There was a full pushka, 100 and something euros. It's not about the money, it's about the people that showed interest. And and 10 people wrote letters to the Rebbe. And since then, there was a whole different route, and the Rebbe saw a young boy that he's having a hard time, he's going through a difficult thing, but the Rebbe gave his blessing. So,
Manny, before you go on, I know you don't want to do it, but it will inspire us. Tell us your story. Happened last year. Come on. I just want people to understand you're not just a young boy who's doing this. You're in this all the way with Mesiras Nefesh. Yeah, I just want to share it. I'll just say.
That's not.
All right, you don't have to if you want.
That we should remember that that the blessings of the tzaddik are always there, and we have our moments that we say, "Oh, I see that the Rebbe was listening to me. That I had my moment." We should remember that it's something which is really constant. When it comes to the day of Gimel Taaamuz, we inspire we inspire ourselves to remember, reconnect, and l'chaim.
Yeah, okay. No, do it. He had some fun on film. The guy said, if you give me an arm wrestling match, the other story. Give me an arm wrestling match, I put on film. He broke his arm. And he was suffering for a year. Still today. He has, it's not completely healed. This is the real Jews over here. It's not